My name is
birthday,
Sean
by the way.
Tilton.
Happy
Yes.
birthday, Sean.
Thank you. Yeah.
How old
I
are you?
figured this is my every
24?
every birthday. 43.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice. You're right
My
behind
birthday
me.
challenge. We'll do birthday challenge.
Okay. Well, who are you?
Yeah. Well, I don't know what I do. I'm trying actively to figure it out since I'm like right in the middle of my midlife crisis. So going to Guthrie and investigating various paranormal activity as well as history, it did move me a little bit further in direction to figure out what I want to do. And as you know, we were there for a wedding, and I made sure to tell Sarah and her bride Cammie that I'm pretty sure that they had their wedding just for me and for my midlife crisis, because I feel like, I made a lot of progress. And so I wanted to say thanks again for having your wedding in Guthrie, because it feels very special indeed, especially the Carnegie Library. I think that was, we're not going to talk too much about that, but there's a lot of history there as well. And it's just a really beautiful venue. So
He's like, thanks, Sarah, for contributing to my midlife crisis.
yes.
Awesome. Perfect. Yes. Love that. Stephanie?
I am Stephanie, and I podcast with Heather, do paranormal investigations. Other days I do more normal stuff like beekeeping and gardening. And I'm with Sean. I'm kind of in my midlife crisis, trying to figure everything out and what I want to do.
How old are you?
42.
Ah, that's that age.
I was 42 yesterday, so, I know a lot about that.
And Sarah, what about you?
I'm Sarah. I am Heather's sister, so I'm just pushed into the paranormal world, and it's not really my thing, so I'm just here to say hi and shake my head.
You're here a lot.
I'm here a lot. I'm here a lot for how much I really don't know about it.
He's like, I don't really care about the paranormal, but 25 years later, here I am.
Here I am, still doing it, just showing up. Yeah.
That's half the battle.
I was having weird dreams at your house last night, Heather.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
But what?
So I spent the night at Heather's house last night, and so I slept in her guest room. No, I was having weird dreams of like we were in, I guess, a haunted house, like sleeping. You were there. I don't know what we were doing there, but like I just remember like spirits kept trying to like wanting to channel through me or possess me or something, and I was telling them all to F off and leave me alone. And you were like, no, just let it happen. It's fine. I'm like, no, it's not happening.
Oh. Was it in a specific house or any house? I mean, just a house?
I don't know where we were. An unrecognizable place.
Hold on. I don't know why this is on. Sorry. Hold on. I could turn off my phone. That's not true. All right. But like nothing else you can remember about it? Was there like anything specific about the house? Was it colors, anything?
I think we were in the woods, but I don't know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What kind of woods?
I don't know. It was very vague. It was just a moment, and then I woke up to the alarm. Yeah.
And you're like, goddamn house.
I was like, thank God the alarm went off. Yeah. This is
Oh,
getting
that's
intense. Yeah.
That's very interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's go through the questions. So obviously Stephanie and Sarah have had investigation history, right? But I still want you to talk about it. So Sean, what about you? What's your investigation history?
Specifically regarding paranormal activity?
Or just being in the supernatural, the liminal?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wouldn't call them formal investigations, but more like curiosity.
Mhm.
So, I've done a lot of backpacking in the mountains by myself and going out in nature and, sort of hoping for contact of sorts. But, simultaneously when we go out in the woods by ourselves, dreams become more enhanced. sensory regular senses become more enhanced. So in the way when we add, fasting and other types of spiritual activity into that, drumming, things like that, I wouldn't quite call those paranormal, but the next morning when a few thousand butterflies come by, it feels very special. So I would consider those sort of signs from nature. I get a lot of, so I have a lot of experience in signs from nature. But as far as directly interfacing with haunted areas specifically, I really don't have. I'd have to go back to New Jersey, and would be my early 20s, late teens, early 20s, in the woods of South Jersey. There was some energy there that not only myself, but my family and other people were able to confirm. And that felt sort of like a haunted area. And, that sort of like caps out my direct paranormal activity where I would be like haunted. Like we kind of talked about this in text, like what might be considered evil or bad energy,
Right.
which is like reputation of the Stone Mayan. And, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Totally does. What about you,
Okay.
Steph?
I'm sorry. My brain does not want to work. Just my investigation?
Yeah, like
Sorry.
what's your experience with paranormal?
Oh, well, we might be here all night. So in 2014, I really had like this spiritual awakening and started testing my psychic abilities. I found your work right after that, like 2015. And since then, I've just been playing around and experimenting. And then we got together and started doing paranormal investigations. So I kind of live in this weird synchronistic liminal place most of the time. And when I'm not and I'm tending bees or whatever I'm doing, baking cookies, then I still have that stuff processing in the back, and then it clicks into place, and I'm right back there, and I'm ready for the next go around.
So you kind of got one foot in both places all the time.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I feel you on that. What about you, Sarah?
Again, I'm your sister, so I just kind of got pushed into it, and I do film and video production, so I always had a camera, so I just used to follow you around and still do follow you around with the camera. And I'm the least likely person to go chase after things. If we hear it, I usually just toss the camera to someone and say, "You deal with it, I'm out." I think we had one of those moments at the Stone Line Inn. We could talk
Did.
about that in a minute.
We did it.
So yeah, our family has a lot of I guess mediumship, witchy things. So I've always just steered away from it. And I guess you, Heather, and Mom, and my other sister have all kind of delved deep into it. And I've always been on the sidelines, just kind of watching and going, I don't know. Yeah.
Which is funny because you're probably one of the most psychic of all of us. You're very tapped in.
I don't know that, but Heather says so.
No, when it comes to like writing and foretelling the future and getting specifics, you're very good at it. So it is funny that you're like, nah.
Right. I just don't do it often. You guys have to force it out of me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But you're always there when the thing happens, so I noticed.
Oh, yeah? Like a battery or what?
Kinda, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's interesting. Okay. For me, I've sort of made this my whole personality. I don't know why. Don't ask. I mean, Sarah and I did a podcast about an alien thing that we did, and the whole conversation was like, do you remember when you were like 12 and you were trying to conjure up things? Remember when you were this age? And I was like, what the hell? When did I start doing this? It was like birth, basically. Like I came out all like, all right, let's fuck with paranormal. Let's do this. So it's always been in my DNA. I take breaks for sure. I take year breaks, 5-year breaks. One time I took 6 years. But then but that's sort of not true. I'm not actively pursuing it, but I'm always like reading books about it or watching shows about it or documentaries. So consider those like, just culling information kind of situations. So yeah. I don't
They're not all good documentaries. She made me watch one yesterday. It was just horrible. Probably why I was having nightmares.
well, I need to end it. Hold on.
It's the worst. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay. But yeah, I don't like, I was thinking about it the other day and I was like, what would I do if I wasn't like kind of reading tarot or doing this? And like, literally I panic because I'm like, that's my whole personality. I don't even know how to get out of it. Like, I don't know. It's weird. I don't know if I could go back to like doing it or something. Like a real job, like, like.
This is turning into a therapy session.
No, that's what I was thinking about it. I was like,
We have Sean and Stephanie on their midlife crises. Her whole identity's wrapped up in the paranormal. She's having
paranormal
existential
therapy.
crises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well,
And I'm like, I don't know why I'm here.
no, look, I'm happily married and I'm bored. Can you just Sharon?
There we go. Perfect.
Well, that goes into like, so one of the things we've all been talking about through text and through I just plague Stephanie with messages sometimes. Part of the paranormal is the journey, right? Isn't that what the trickster is? It's the journey. It's you can't delve into the paranormal without delving into your own shadow. Would you agree? Disagree? How do you feel about that?
I'd agree.
Why?
Why? Because a lot of the time when you're investigating or you have paranormal, you are going to filter it through your mind. So if you have those shadows that you haven't worked through, then the liminal or, whatever you're in contact with is going to reflect those back to you. Or you're going to interpret it through those. So if you don't work through the shadow, then if something scary or unfamiliar shows up, then you're going to interpret that based on what you're trying to ignore. So I think that's why a lot of people go into a haunted location and automatically go to an evil spirit or some demon that's lurking in the shadows, when it's not necessarily demonic. It's just a different feeling that they don't know about. And so they're automatically interpreting that way because they haven't acknowledged those negative aspects and that they can be okay. It's just different.
Yeah, how does that work then with like a group of people who are sort of becoming one mind or one, we're working together around the board to channel. And so then how like one person's shadow outshadow the other people, or how are we collectively projecting a shared darkness, or what's going on there?
I think that if somebody's energy is more powerful than the other in the group, the others, then yeah, it can kind of overshadow it. But at the same time, if you are in a group with people that are aware of what's actually going on, then they can kind of reorient that and spin it, because that happened when we were at the Crescent, when we were in the basement. There were some people that started getting nervous about what we were doing, and Heather actually was able to kind of tone it down and be like, oh no, I have experience with this, I know what this is, we don't need to worry about it.
Good.
Yeah. And if she were here, she could.
Well, I was
Yeah,
going to
I think
ask her too. Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, I think it becomes like a hive mind too, right? So
Mm.
whoever's the loudest and takes up the most energy, people are going to feed off of that. And so then it becomes the hive mind and everyone just kind of reacts in the same way unless there's a disruptor that's like you said, Heather was like, no, don't worry about it. That calmed the energy. So you have to have someone who calms the energy if you have a person who is disrupting the energy.
Yeah, so I'm usually that person, because I've been doing this for so long that I kind of go in neutral. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm definitely affected by it, but it's always after the fact. Like 2 days later, I'm like, oh my God, now I'm going to have my crisis, right? Or now the fear is going to set in, or I'm going to go through it. But usually, um, usually in the moment, I'm more focused on what everybody else is doing and what's going on and what the thread line is. Um, because when you are in hive mind or when you're investigating together, and I was kind of aware of this at the Stoneline Inn too, is um, when you have fearful people, because there were some fearful people in the room with us, or people that aren't used to doing it, you have to kind of set a calming energy or kind of like uh, you have to set the tone. You know what I mean? And you kind of have to let that energy lead, or you will get people who are like, it's a demonic, or it's this, or it's that. Or were you talking about the down in the basement,
Mm-hmm.
Stephanie, at the Crescent?
Yeah.
Yeah. So people were like, it's demonic. And we're like, no, 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 it's cool. It's all good. We're not doing that here. Like, and then it kind of went away because we changed the energy. But you will know what people are afraid of really fast when you investigate with them, because it will show up. It will show up in some way, shape, or form. Yeah.
Then I have to ask, like, is that really an entity or is that just someone's fear manifesting?
Okay. Well, now we're going into the whole idea of like, as an investigator, and then this goes back into Stone Line Inn too, because the Stone Line Inn is like this battery, right? Because of like all these factors, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But um, when and I've been working with this a lot, like in the last few months, trying to figure this out. But like, if you are investigating the paranormal, you're both the observer, but you're also part of the phenomenon. So you're putting an energy into the activity just by experiencing it or observing it. And so you have to distinguish what is you and what is the actual investigation. And that's really hard for a lot of people because a lot of people just are not self-aware. And they just assume that if they feel bad about it, like Stephanie said, if you feel bad about it, then it's bad, right? Um, and if you feel good about it, then it's good. And if it's a child, it's automatically good. If it's a man, well, we're wondering about that, right? If it's dark, it's black, bad. So um, I think you have to be careful with that part of it. And you have to recognize your own thought process. And I think that's why people typically read the stories, then they expect the activity to follow the story. And one of the things that Stephanie and I were talking about was that I wrote a book about the Stone Line Inn. I know all of the activity that happens in that place, and we did not experience one of the stories. Not one. We didn't experience the children. We didn't experience the smoke, the man in the corner. We didn't experience the shadows in the basement. None of that. We didn't experience any of it. And I think that's because, one, nobody knew the stories but me, and two, I don't care for the stories. I just want to know what the real people in the place. So I just overwrite it. Did you experience anything weird in the basement, Sean?
Not. I mean, I experienced a lot of, I don't know, chills and hot flashes in the basement and in the attic, both nights, Friday and Saturday night. But I wouldn't label it like a profound, like touch or anything along those lines. For me, the more paranormal things that happened were so in my room, in between the wedding time and when we came back for the murder mystery, so I had left my room, went to the wedding ceremony at the Carnegie Library, and came back. And between that time, my table had moved. And that could have been just staff. I mean, there's lots of different ways you could spin it, but that was strange to see the table pulled out and cocked 45 degrees from my bed. So that was in my bedroom. And then the broom jumping was the other like main
That was
thing
weird.
that's sort of strange, when we all laughed in unison and the broom jumped off, and it was the big heavy wooden holder for this decorative broom. Broom was probably like 3 feet long, and then this big oversized wooden holder fell on the top of that on the armoire at the top there, or the hutch. I think it was on top of that hutch. And so that felt pretty strange with timing of every 3 or 4 of us laughing in unison. But in the basement directly, it was more like going off of what the other people were experiencing. Ophina was experiencing a lot more cold feelings, I guess.
Yeah, when the broom fell, we were all making jokes and laughing in unison. And me and Sean were standing right next to each other in that hutch thing. We were probably, like 2 feet away from it.
You were
And like no
nowhere
one touched it.
Yeah.
And it's big, it's heavy. Like it made a big crashing sound. And I looked over, I forget who was over on the side, but he looked at us and said, "You guys didn't touch that. Nobody touched that." And that's when I was like, I'm out. Like I said before, like, I'm gone. And then you guys were like investigating it, see what it was and all that. But there were some markings on the bottom too, Sean said. What was the markings?
You
Yeah, it
literally
was like a little.
walked away. You literally walked away. Like you were just like, "Oh, well, there she goes." Like, right aside.
Was it John or was it? I think it was John. Someone
don't-
said, like, you guys didn't touch that. How did that fall? And
I don't
was
know.
like, no, thank you. Gotta go.
You
I
know
just-
what was strange about that moment is that it happened in the middle of all of the debauchery of
Right.
I was right before we cut the cake. It was like half an hour, 20 minutes before we cut the cake. So everybody was sort of vibing high with the wedding, and it wasn't too late that everybody would have been like totally hammered either.
Mhm.
So it's sort of strange to kind of like get that transition, and like I almost wish I had paid more attention to that moment, because it felt like it took advantage of that transition time where we were expected to move in around the cake, and that didn't have time to go back and actually look at the significance of that thing falling and kind of like hitting us on the way down. I don't know. The broom jumped off the shelf. I mean, that's like symbolic in so many ways of what it was chosen. It's a very playful thing to go through an archetypal symbol like that. I think that's reminds me of at least how I understand the trickster energy, but maybe, I don't know, we understand the trickster energy slightly differently. So maybe you've used that word several times, Heather. And so I was wondering if you could clarify what you mean by trickster energy, or how that manifests, or if that would be an example of it.
That would be completely an example of it. This is Stephanie. Like, how do you describe the trickster? Because I'm like, goblins. But that's all I got.
I see the trickster as the playful universe. So everybody thinks everything's all like angels and rainbows and butterflies when they think about spirituality and the universe, but there's this underlying chaos and fun and play that's there to take you out of your normal way of seeing things or being. And that's what people forget about. They forget about the paradoxes in life. And so I think the trickster is there to put you in paradoxical situations and show you a different way and really trick you into insight.
I think that
It doesn't
really-
always, it doesn't always seem like that. Like most of the time it's shitty. Then
I don't know. I like the way you said that trick you and like to show you the paradoxes or to weave synchronicities into your narrative to show you that something else is going on. Because if you have enough synchronicities that appear before you, or any rational person, they have to start asking questions like, how is this possible? So I really like that playful universe, weaving paradoxes into the narrative.
I think there's a level when you encounter the trickster, especially in the liminal, and the liminal is anything that's supernatural or paranormal, or anytime you're like really forced to go there. I think it forces you to look at your shadow too. Like, what are you hiding? What are you not facing? So a lot of times it kind of playfully confuses you or playfully throws something at you, like literally or figuratively, or shows up as, well, for me, it always showed up as goblins. Like, I had a whole thing where I kept seeing goblins everywhere, like in this ridiculous amount of them. But I'm like, what does the goblin represent to me? Like, why is it goblins for me? And then I really had to do some soul searching about, like, what is a goblin to me and what does it feel like? And the goblins were, to me, were the parts of myself that were wounded that I kind of had to discover because they were running the show, even though I didn't realize it. So that's kind of how I see the trickster. I used to think it was bad, but now I'm all like, when the trickster shows up, what am I not facing? What am I not looking at? What am I not paying attention to? So yeah. But it definitely was a trickster moment. What's funny is you guys are like, so it was me, it was Sean, it was Sarah. Who's the person? The other person? And I can't for the life of me remember who it is. We want to say it's John, but I don't think it was him.
Was it Karen?
Yeah, I think it was Karen.
Okay.
It was Karen. Okay. Yeah.
It feels like Karen. If it wasn't John, then it was a boisterous male. One of the it was Karen or John.
Yeah,
Pretty
I
sure it
don't
was
think it
Karen.
was John.
Yeah.
It might have been. But the most interesting part about that we kind of looked over is that you were talking about that Israel flag. And that
Right.
helped me laugh because he cracked a joke about it and it was funny. I can't remember the joke.
Right.
We literally laughed at the same time. And that, whatever it was, that one piece, like, I saw it roll. It jumped up and rolled. And that thing flew up in the air and fell. And then there was a pentagram at the bottom of that broom.
Like a little tassel. It was like a little tassel with the pentagram hanging at the bottom that broke and was on the floor later.
Yeah, the key was on the floor and I took the key.
Or was a key on the floor?
Yeah, because I was like, well, if the key's next to the door, I'll probably need this key. So I took the key because I'm like, thank you. But I just remember thinking it was so funny that, like, why did you have a witch's broom in this house? And this pentagram on it, which is not bad. It's just for protection. So that was literally like, that's what you clean the bad spirits off the door. And I was like, that's so, why is that the thing that jumped off of the piece of furniture?
Well, I mean, I just, hypothetically speaking, if we were talking to the owner or the energy of the previous owner, who was Rebecca Luker, who passed away in 2024, like, I started looking at all of the artifacts in the house a lot differently, which includes the Cyrano de Bergerac, includes the art, includes the easel. Like, I think, I don't know how long she owned the property, but she would have had an active hand in decorating and placing all those artifacts. And, going on another assumption, but I don't think her son has moved a lot of stuff since her passing. So I feel like the broom is another, it's like a tell to, like, yeah, she's running that place and that broom is to clean the bad spirits off. She's running a haunted bed and breakfast murder mystery. So she's going to need some tool to keep things kind of flowing so that, people can come in and not feel like overwhelmed with negative or dark vibes. She's trying to clean out so I don't know. That's how I kind of looked at it is she kind of took notice of us the first day and, became more playful, or the energy became more playful the second day. That's just clearly assumptions.
Good assumption. Stephanie, you were there in what, 2017?
Yes.
So what did it look like in 2017?
Like the pictures online. I'm sure is probably exactly the same.
Was there like the King Tut thing in the corner and the piano and the furniture and the embalming table?
Yeah,
Was
the
there an
embalming
Israeli
table's
flag?
been there forever.
What'd you say, Sean?
Was there an Israeli flag in the parlor, or was that
I don't know. I was there during the murder mystery, so I was more interested in talking to people and trying to solve the case than the actual decor. But I have a feeling that nothing has changed. I mean, they've been doing the same thing for years.
So it looked like it online?
Mhm.
Okay, so it's probably looked like that since like 1980. She bought the house in 1986 and renovated it. And then online I watched an interview with her and she said that she had picked out every single piece of furniture in that house for herself through estate sales or people giving her stuff or their stores but like she curated every single piece in there. And like the way that she was talking about it was like every piece in that house meant something to her. It had a memory attached to it, of where she got it and why she got it and what it meant. And all the rooms are all parts of her personality. They all are attached to something that's her.
Makes sense.
But then it begs the question, here's the question of all questions though. How does she know about like witchcraft? Because that's we're all not saying it, but that's what it is. A witch's broom is not something that you just like find online and you're like, oh, sprinkle, sprinkle. You know what I mean? It's something that you have to like look for. And, witches' brooms are, a lot of people have, a lot of witches have brooms in there by their door. And that was clearly by the door. But like, do you think that she was into this stuff? Do you think she was into witchcraft? Like, what was your vibe on it?
are you asking me?
Anybody?
Yeah. Well, it's hard to speculate because, I mean, witchcraft's sort of the taboo term for some people, right? So what if we just say, was she into the supernatural or the paranormal, and we leave witchcraft off to the side? Like, yes, she was clearly into the supernatural and paranormal because she has this bed and breakfast that comes with special features, hauntings and whatnot, and she's doing the murder mystery. So that right there is like, she's interested in the morbid and she's got an interesting imagination. Witchcraft would imply more like a spell for protection or working with energy with intention, and that's sort of difficult to say without direct confirmation from somebody who would have known her or practiced with her. There was one blog that we found that allegedly put her in the cemetery doing seances, but that blog even felt sort of like all witchcraft is satanic, so therefore it's bad, So like anytime somebody uses satanic and witchcraft in the same sentence, I kind of like, well, we don't necessarily know what they were doing with their witchcraft. So I still got skeptical if she considered herself a witch or if she practiced witchcraft. But she would have been, I think, definitely aware of supernatural and had a sensitive and a sympathetic ear to paranormal activity.
She was
Did you guys have a little burb on your room door?
a broom and what?
On your room door. Like a little one like that?
No.
Like hanging? No, I had nothing like that hanging on my door.
We had like a little wicker broom hanging from our door.
When you checked in?
That's to clear up the spirits. That's to keep the spirits out of your room.
Well, I didn't get one of those.
Yeah, obviously your table is moving around.
My
We
table's
had no
moving
activity
around.
in our room.
They knew we were going to be in there with the Ouija board later, so.
Yeah.
But, the table, I had placed all these objects on the table specifically. It was garlic. It was my travel size singing bowl. It was my obsidian that has a 6-pointed star on the bottom, so obsidian for grounding. And I think I had my whistle, my 528 hertz whistle. But so this table was intended to be a sort of like protectionist sort of table, right? To like a place for me to go if things got really weird. So that's why it was funny that that's what moved. I think that's
They're
what
like,
that trickster
like,
did.
this is gonna work, buddy.
Like, But I mean, if I was the cook, I would have, or the cleaner, the house, the help there was very interesting. So I would have moved the table if I was one of them, just to mess with the guests, so I could see that not being an entity and just being somebody messing with me. But
I don't know. It was the way that was moved because you showed it to me, and I was all like, "That is the strangest way to move a table." The way
yeah,
it was angled, it was like totally in the way of the room.
well, it's sort of funny. Like if you think about it, it kind of pointed the one corner at Cyrano de Bergerac, right? Like his
It's-
statue.
We did.
And or right next, which was directly next to the fireplace. So later at 2 a.m. when we were doing the Ouija in there, and it kept pointing at that fireplace or that statue. But so it kind of goes in line with that statue. And I'm not a scholar of Cyrano, but I was like, what was he famous for? What is it that she might have had an interest in putting that sculpture? And that was in the wedding suite, right? The fanciest suite too. So she put that there for a reason. And so I feel like there's more work for us to do individually and collectively, looking into who was this guy Cyrano and what he might have to give us some clues on the stone lion specifically.
I did.
Yeah,
read-
which is funny because the wedding suite I was supposed to get, and I saw the pictures online. I said, "Oh no, I'm not sitting on that couch." It was because of the couch and the way it was covered. I was like, "No, I can't stay in that room. No." I refused to book that one, and Sean was all confused. He's like, "Why am I staying in the wedding suite?"
I think my wife was more confused than I was. She was I don't know about this wedding. You go to the hotel and you get the wedding suite. It worked out good in the end, though.
It worked out good. Yeah. And that my room was the one with the broom because I'm not into all this. Shut
Sure.
it out. I knew.
And then Sarah put me in the room that is the most haunted, I found out later on. They're like, "Oh, yes, all the activity is in that room." And I'm all, "Great. That's awesome." No wonder I didn't sleep.
And you slept? Did you sleep through it all, or
Oh, hell no. I didn't
you
sleep.
didn't sleep at all?
Yeah, it's that place.
The one night I did try to sleep, I dreamt about a woman in black, like morning clothing, and she was trying to tell me some story about her grieving, and I'm like, "That's great, I'm trying to sleep." And then there were some kids that came into the room, and I was like, I literally woke up in the middle of the night and was like, "Oh hell no, you guys are thought forms, get the fuck out." And I went back to bed. Like that was the thought in my head, was like, "I'm not doing this tonight." But the woman didn't leave. So I don't know what she wanted, but she was on the side of bed and she was talking. And I let her stay because like she wasn't being rude or anything. And it was in a dream. So I'm like, okay, well, at least you didn't like try to like do this in real life. And there was a mirror. There's a mirror. The mirror is like, here's the bed. Here's the mirror. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Let's create a portal in this room. That's great. Let's do that. Let's make it a little chamber.
I kept thinking that too. Like all the rooms had mirrors facing the beds.
Yeah.
And I remember waking up and looking in the mirror, and it made the room look, because I had that big, long, extended back room too. It just made the room look like infinity.
Mm-hmm.
They kept creeping me out.
Yeah, because it creates like well, I think it creates a vortex. I mean, everywhere that I've gone with mirrors, and that's what happens. And I don't know. I just felt all night things were trying to get my attention, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. Sorry. Like I was like fighting it. So, and then luckily, the next night I didn't go to bed till like 3:30 in the morning, so I did not care. I was like, I gonna get 3 hours, 4 hours of sleep. I gotta just should have closed my eyes, and then I was tossing and turning, but like I don't know. It just wasn't a good sleep. It was very busy is the word that I want to use. Busy. But I did do some research on Cyrano, and there was nothing in it that was like, this is it. Like I didn't get the psychic hit. I was like, what is this person trying to say? Like what is the message here? And I didn't quite get it.
What is Cyrano? I wasn't there. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
The guy with he's a poet and an author. He kind of like invented science fiction in a way, from what I am reading of him. And he's like moon travel, spaceman. Like he's like the first guy to conceive of some of these ideas of leaving the earth and what that might be like. So coming in time in the early 17th century, Renaissance, Enlightenment. But yeah, this is where we need John, because John, I feel like as the history professor, he knew right away that was Cyrano. I kind of wanted it to be Don Quixote, but he was like, that's not Don Quixote. You know, he corrected me very quickly. So I feel like he would have some good talking points for Cyrano.
Well, maybe someday he will decide to be on the podcast. I asked him and he said, not right now, give me a few weeks. And I was like, I'm going to write that down.
He's still digesting.
He said he had some stuff that he had to do, like he was already committed to things. And he's like, because he didn't answer me. And I was like, you can say no. It's cool. Like I'm not going to give my feelings hurt. He's like, no, I don't want to say no. He's like, I want to do it. I just can't do it now. He's like, give me a few weeks. And I was like, noted. I will be calling you in a few weeks. like down to the day. I'll be like, so you ready now? Because there are so many things that he said that like I'm recalling and going, what was that? Like I need to know the answer to it. So but if all night and all day your table, the Ouija board, everything is pointing in that direction, there has to be a story to that we're just not getting. Wasn't he like a poet too, who because of his nose he would write poems for other people?
Yeah, so I have no. I would sound silly trying to talk about what he's known for, but I believe you. I mean, he's been put on a pedestal for a reason, literally.
Right. There's I know some of the story is that he was a poet and a writer, and because of the way he looked, because of his nose, he never felt like he could be with the woman that he loved. And so he gave his poems and his writings to someone else, and the woman that he wanted fell in love with that man. And it was like, no, you're really falling in love with me, not the man, because it's my words and it's my actions. I'm telling him what to do. So he was living vicariously through this man, but then there was like this heartache because he couldn't get past his own nose to actually go to this woman and say, hey, I love you.
And that right there could be a parable for something that Rebecca is still unsettled about, trying to deal with her past, you know, or if she put that there next to the bed where people are supposed to be, it's the wedding suite, then why put him there specifically? And if she's not trying to do some sort of hat tip to his main character flaw or his romantic undoing, so to speak. Because I feel like we all have these romantic tragedies that play out in our lives in some point. Failures, triumphs, unsettled business.
I mean, that could be some of the trickster energy too, but that is such an interesting place to put it in the wedding suite of all places. Like, here's some guy that has unrequited love because he can't face the woman that he loves because of how he feels about himself. And so the clincher is that she fell in love with him, even though she thinks it's somebody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he was good and he was kind and he was good enough for her, even though he doesn't think he is. So it's kind of interesting that that's in the wedding suite of all places. It's kind of paradoxical.
Or she fell in love with the house, thinking that it was something else that it wasn't, or like the house is like Cyrano and she's the lover, or vice versa. Because you keep having this, you've mentioned this idea of the house being a battery and being a vortex and not necessarily being haunted. But if she bought the house thinking it was haunted, but it wasn't actually haunted, it was just a battery. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think the reason why I say the house is not haunted, the house is haunted, is because were you up in the other one that happened? The house itself told us that. It said the house is not haunted. What do you mean the house isn't haunted? So, but there's ghosts here. Yes, but the house is not haunted. And I said, oh, so the house is alive? Yes. So like rose red? Yes. And I was like, okay, so the house is telling us that it's alive, that it has some kind of sentience. But, and here's the kicker, this goes back to the observer. We know it's the landscape, and we'll get a little bit into that. The water, the landscape, right? All the things that you were going through, because you did a lot of research about and we talked about it, the land, the water, the convergence of the water, all that stuff, right? So we know it's prime for that. Oh, and the ley lines. But now that I'm thinking about it, is the house alive because Rebecca said it? Like, is this a monster house situation? That's what Sarah said. She's like, it's monster house.
Like Little Shop of Horrors, but it's like the house is the plant, not, you know what I mean? Like, we're coming in there, we're giving it energy.
Right, or the monster house, where the monster house is the woman, right? Have you seen the movie? Yeah, like that. That's what Sarah said.
The cartoon.
The Little Shop of Horrors?
No, the cartoon Monster House. Have you seen it?
No.
Oh, okay. It's like this house that draws people in, right? It draws people in because it needs energy, but like it scares people almost to death, and it shape shifts and morphs, and everyone's just terrified of it because they think it's haunted. But it's alive, and it's always like it's living and breathing and trying to communicate, but nobody understands it because they're scared of it. And then at the end, it ends up being the woman or Heather.
Ends up being the wife of the man that lives there.
Yeah.
She turned into the house.
Mm-hmm.
Just I'd like to go further back in time, possibly too. Like the house was built there, they say like 1906, 1907, I think. And so why did Mr. is it Houghton? I forget his name.
Horton.
Why did he choose to build right there? And it's easy to say, oh, because that's where his plot of land was, or that's where but even going further back, like what called him to that area of Oklahoma in the first place to bring him there? And then there's, we could go back. Did he choose to even build the house? Like he found himself building this house and doing all these strange things in the house, running multiple businesses. So is there an entity or an energy that predates even the house that's more attached to the land itself, and that we go through, you know, you could imagine like the indigenous maybe having some sort of, it's a holy place, whether it's a good holy or a bad holy, but it's a place on the land that talks to the humans. And in our time, we have to have a house because that's the container that we know in our world. We have to be comfortable, semi-comfortable, because most of us aren't comfortable going outside talking to spirits in just the woods. That's like really creepy for a lot of people. So is it inventing enough synchronicities or weaving enough synchronicities into people's lives that's where Mr. Hupton decided to build his home, which is like 120-year history approximately. That's kind of where my brain went with some of this stuff, starting to look deeper, further back on the timeline.
So that part of Guthrie does feel different. Once you go over the bridge, because when you come into the main town off the interstate where the downtown area is, and you go over the bridge down where the Stone Lion is, and every time I go over that bridge, I'm like, it feels different. It feels weird over here. I don't like it. I don't like going to that side of town. I never really have, because it's just different. And I think there is something energetic there, because there may have been I think there was a fire that went through that area at some point. Not where the houses are, like in between, because there's some fields, like in between where those houses are and the bridge, like where the river or creek, whatever it is that goes through there. I think there was a fire that went through there. And I thought, okay, well, that's probably why it feels different. But I think it's more than that, like where you're saying that there's something with the land there. And I also agree with the house being alive, because when you told me that, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Because when I went in 2017, you know, I was just getting into my abilities really experimenting with mediumship. And so I went in thinking, okay, I'm going to feel into this house. I'm going to see if I can feel anything, because I am an empath and I feel everything. So if there is an entity there, I will feel it or I will experience it in some way. Well, we went to the murder mystery. I didn't feel anything. And I was like, this isn't haunted. This house isn't haunted. I didn't feel anything. I think it's all stories that are made up. Like, and that's really the story I had after I went into that house. It's like, there's nothing here. It's a story that is made up. But I wasn't tapping into like that energetic and that frequency of the actual house. I was grasping for other entities, which, like you said, is not really there. If the house is really alive or this energetic battery, then that makes sense. And I was going somewhere else and I forgot what I was thinking. Something else that you said. I don't remember. Oh, you were talking about her. Is it her that did she just put in stories? And I think that could be part of it, because there are a lot of stories that have been circulating around that are not real. So it could be a lot of stories and ideas that she has put into the house to create this energy and to make it what it is. And that's why she's showing up, is because she's now connected with the house.
I like that. I like that. Stephanie, when you say there was a fire there, like, and I just learned this yesterday, that there directly next to the Stone Lion was an old school called Banner School. It was where the grade school, and it burned down in 2014. So I didn't know if you knew that or not.
Yeah, I did know that.
Okay.
But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about further away.
Further away, like more of like a forest fire or like a bigger fire came through.
I don't know what it was, what type of fire, but it seems like there was a fire. It was more east, but on that side of the water.
Interesting.
Yeah, fire does change things. it does change the molecular structure, like, of an area. It changes the ion of a place. But I mean, okay, so we know that there's ley lines there because I checked the ley lines of the area. There is a active yang line there, so that would be masculine energy, and that's the big one. Then there's a balance line close to Guthrie, but it kind of butts up against it, and it goes into OKC. But so there is a very strong masculine energy in that area you were talking about, where the stone line is. But it is interesting that you asked, why did he pick that particular place to build? Because it's just, I was reading about there's a Masonic temple, like catty corner to it. Like, why did they build the Masonic temple there too? I mean, it's just a strange area to build a big temple. It's in the middle of the town, but there's more to it than that. I feel like the energy source of that area is so different. You can feel it. I was telling Sean I did have this dream about the stone lane in where we were in the house. A bunch of us were in the house, and I could see the water underneath the house moving, and I was like, that's the energy. Oh, there it is. That's the energy of the place. That's the battery. That's what's feeding it all the time, like this energy of this water moving. So there has to be something under the water table that is active energy, but it is a convergence of like two or three rivers too. Or there's two or three rivers that move there, and then there's the dam for Lake Hester. And I noticed when they start damming water and start converging rivers, that creates some kind of like energy flux. Because every single time I'm looking at these battery houses, as I call them, there's always ley lines, water tables, and nuclear energy somewhere around it, or an Air Force base. We have all that in that area. So there are these like these things. But now that we're talking, I'm wondering if the reason why Rebecca showed up is because she is the house. She is the living thing. As far as for making up stuff, like, so almost every single ghost in that place, there's no history of it. There's no history of Irene. There's Augusta is a real person. She lived, she got married, she never died. They have like records of her moving on with her life. Was it you, Stephanie, that found that message on the message board, the forum?
Mhm. Yeah, you sent me that article, and then in the messages, it said that I think it was from someone in the family that built the house. It said that these aren't real people. We have no record of them. It's all made up.
Yeah. And Augusta lived on to get married and have children. Supposedly she died in the house. So like the man in the basement, we don't know who the man is. There's no,
But it was a funeral home, so it could be anybody.
this literally could be anybody. Yeah. Yeah. So, which leads me to, I keep comparing the fee house with the Stoneline Inn, because we have a matriarchal mother who is taking over the energy of the house. And when Stephanie and I went to the fee house, which is in Little Rock, we had a matriarchal mother who took over the house, and the house burned because of her. And now the house has burned 3 times. Her room has burned twice. I don't know what the third time was. The third time happened in July. But you were saying it's the other side of the house, in the same area. It's adjacent to her room, but it's the same area. So I was like, what is the cycle here? What's going on here? But it's that same energy of the matriarch of the house, like embodying the energy so much that, I mean, that house was living too, I would say.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like It was living, but I think it was activated because of those ley lines.
Right.
So then when we did what we did, it somewhat deactivated it. I wouldn't say entirely. We just adjusted the energy because there was still a fire. So there's still something cycling there.
But it is interesting looking at the history of the place. Suddenly, nobody wanted to investigate there anymore, and
Right.
the owner left,
Mm-hmm.
and the house became abandoned. And I found a video online. The carriage house is being sold separately from the house.
Really?
It's a renovation.
It's the stone lion or the fee house.
The fee house. The fee house in Little Rock. You can look it up. There's all kinds of information about it.
So take that timeline, right, where things are changing at that space. What will the activity continue on the site, even if it's not the house anymore, or will the energy leave with the house, the owner?
I don't know. That house was such a battery.
So that's what intrigued me with the stone lion, and I really wish I had walked more around. But the fact that there was a school like right next door where children played all the time. So you have this strong child imprint energy next to a mortuary, which, at one point might have been a hospital post World War I too, according to one story. See, some things have happened at that house. It was a boarding house. It's seen its share of ups and downs. Then you have the school next door, which is the strong child, and that the children sort of live in between, especially very young children, in that liminal space. And then the school, of course, burns down in 2014, and then it becomes a splash pad. It becomes a park with Guthrie's first splash pad. So again, now water on the surface. And so I just find it interesting in the grand scheme of things, like the stone lions for sale right now. The future of the home is sort of uncertain, but the energy that's been stirred up there, whether by Rebecca, intentionally stirring it up or stepping into a space that already had some strong masculine energy. But in a small town like Guthrie, they know the history of the stone mining, right? And so building a park directly next to this haunted house is not an accident. I'm sure there's a lot of backstory that makes it seem very probable, like that is the best place to put this park. But the park is, if you look at it on Google Maps, it's got some very interesting pathways going on where it's really having the kids do unique play-based immersion. And then splash pads are sort of a new phenomena in playgrounds themselves. So the city's proud to tout that it's its first splash pad. And with your dream with the water. So I'm kind of leaning towards the house. It can be a battery and it can be alive, but then directly next door, I think that I'm thinking the land itself is alive and sort of has an intelligence that makes these things possible on a time scale that we might not fully understand, in an attempt to communicate to us pieces of a puzzle that we're only like getting pieces of it in our brief time there, but we're definitely like experiencing that trickster energy, but we might not be able to solve the mystery. It might be paranormal investigators in 2152 or something, like 100 years from now, what's the story going to be? And that's kind of where, I can't guess, but I'm fascinated by it because I think there will still be a story going on in that little spot of Guthrie.
It has the makings for it. I mean, we have a house. The land is children, funerals, boarding a house. These are all liminal spaces. Bed and breakfast is a liminal space. People come and go. Nobody stays there, really. The only person that stayed there was Rebecca.
Mm-hmm.
She's the only constant in this whole situation. If we were, well, we have removed her from the situation. She died. So how does that change the phenomenon? I mean, I believe you, and I think you're correct. I believe that if that house leaves, the next house, anything that's built there, is going to have that same energy. But without Rebecca, how does it manifest itself? You know what I mean? Is it is it attached to the next person that is psychic, or that is interested, or that has an opening for it?
I think that's a great question, because it kind of boils down to the potential of the energy to be interacted with, or the potential of the energy to be explored. And because of the history of the stone lion, people go with these assumptions. Like Stephanie was saying earlier, like we manifest these dark things that are coming from us with the intention of what we're expecting, right? We're going, it's a murder mystery. Therefore, we expect to see certain things. But if it was, if they clear it and 10 or 15 years go by and a whole generation comes to pass without knowing the stone lion, the energy is still there, but the potential for a person to interact with it may be diminished if they don't know what the phenomena are or the synchronicities, and that's kind of why I think they built the park there, because they want to keep that potential alive in some way, shape, or form, and getting kids to play at that park keeps the potential for that energy to interact with us humans alive in some way.
Yeah, stone lion brings a lot of money to Guthrie.
You think?
Yeah.
I thought the way that I interpreted it was it used to bring a lot of money, but since Rebecca passed away, it's been, and I could be wrong,
And that
but
might be, I haven't been there in several years, but
it's for
that is,
sale.
yeah, that's the potential though, right? I mean, that could be the city's reasoning for putting the splash pad there, like you said, to keep that alive, because if they keep that story there, if people come to the stone lion, then they're coming into Guthrie. And I mean, this kind of has the reputation of being a haunted city.
Right. The
If
whole
you
city.
lose one of those, mainstays, then what does that do to the environment of the haunted town and, that people want to go visit?
And I tend to agree with you that the whole town has some things going on, specific areas more so than others. And
Yeah, the downtown. I mean, the one that's been there since the land run. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we could go deep dive on the history, and that's sort of what I like to do. But like, why did they pick Guthrie to build the land office too? When they're doing this, there's a lot of things about the official history that we can learn about in the Territorial Museum that we just won't know the full side of the story, because the inhabitants that were there and the civilized tribes of the Oklahoma Territory, there was pictures of them in the Territorial Museum, and they were part of the same good old boys club that built Guthrie. So there's the civilized tribes, and then what we might, in a non-derogatory way, call the uncivilized tribes that were politely asked to leave before the civilized tribes could come in. So I think there's narratives
Politely.
there. Politely, yeah. Well,
Politely, yeah.
I won't make any accusations. We'll keep it light. But I think you know what I'm suggesting anyway. But so, and that's I naturally gravitated to the radiation stuff, and how radiation is potentially a gateway into the liminal space. Like the Curies, Pierre Curie, sort of like one of the most famous spiritualists, and who they discovered radiation, but then the units of radiation are still named after him. And so if there's like moderately elevated levels, moderate to medium levels of radiation in the groundwater of Guthrie, or in their surface water, that then is joining the splash pad, and then it's really not ideal to drink, but then they're letting kids play in it. Like, is that allowing the children to maybe evolve their own psi abilities within the city of Guthrie, to allow them, to keep that brand of Guthrie alive for the future? Can we have a whole bunch of psi investigations, or is there a business plan here, or is there something else going on with Guthrie? Like, is the whole town alive?
I had considered that. I had, because we went downtown, remember we went to the wine festival, and you and John were talking about the tunnels and how all the buildings are connected, and there was this whole labyrinth. And then I was thinking caves, masons. Masons used to do ritual in caves before they had lodges. So of course they're going to be going to places that have caves or have underground tunnels or underground locations. So they can do the ritual before they build their lodges. And I just kept thinking that over and over and over while you guys were talking. I was like, why here? We have a water table, we have caves, we have tunnels, we have all these things converging together that are creating this very, very masculine, very high vibe. It's ripe for ritual, it's ripe for phenomenon. It's its own little portal to the liminal, And if that's threatened, how does the land react to that? Because it's not just going to be the people that react to that. It's going to be the land. It's going to be, if it's being constantly fed, if it's constantly in this state, it's a battery. The battery needs to be fed some way. And it's interesting you're talking about radiation and you're talking about radium and all these things, because that's, how do you keep the land alive? You have to make sure the people around you can have an experience with it, right? And if you're always in liminal, that would be such a trickster thing to do. Children are, it's just like, okay, so it's just like when that thing fell off the mantle, right? It flew at us. It's because we were happy, we were laughing, and we were joking. And, most haunted places either have trauma or they have a lot of exciting energy. We're all like in this wedding thing. We're all a little tipsy. We're having a lot of fun. We're making jokes, It would make sense to put a splash pad next to a haunted location because you're like,
Okay.
it's all literally a battery
Yeah.
through the water.
Yeah.
Did the land have something to do with that? Is the land persuasive enough through energy, through suggestion, through it wants to survive, right? So can it? I know this sounds so weird, but can the land itself kind of create a narrative? Like, yes, we need to have a splash pad across the street from the haunted location to keep it going, right? So maybe the people doing it don't realize that's what they're doing, but the land is kind of creating this narrative for them. If the land is sentient, I don't know if it is or not, but it feels like it. When you walk around there, it feels like it. Other locations that are similar, there is a sentient feeling to it. It responds to the KT meter. It responds to dowsing rods. It creates phenomenon, thought forms, egregores. Like I said, as you're observing, you are becoming part of the phenomenon, right? You're putting your energy into it. So it has to be a mutually exclusive energy exchange. So in some ways, I feel like the building is sentient, but the land is too. Right?
Yeah. No. I mean, it really goes to the bigger questions that I'm confronting is my own life and my own explorations, like what level of sentience and intelligence that we think we understand versus what could potentially be out there, and It's like when we watch ants do their thing, we can put sticks in their path or put food to bait them off their trail. And the way that ants communicate to build their nest. So if I was like a super intelligent, sentient earth being, and I had the desire to sort of preserve or enhance or protect a part of my earth body, like what would I have to do to move humans around the same way that humans move ants around? And we wouldn't necessarily be able to understand it because we're just following the cues to do what humans do and the time scale that we understand. But we can understand it if we apply that, if we want to make the ants do something, we can, we can build a habitat for them, or we can remove all of the bad insects so that they can not be threatened. Or there's just a multitude of ways to try to imagine how we're in this super intelligent system that we don't necessarily fully understand. But when we find places like the stone lion as humans, especially sensitive humans, people who have the ability to tap into those other fields, it's a confirmation of sorts, but we might not fully need to understand what the stone lion is, only that we were there for a reason, and we're like, and we should probably go back. Or maybe there's more work there to do, and it's not for us, but we're going to pass this information along to other humans to go and do their work.
Yeah. So I'm reminded, Stephanie, do you remember, we just looked at the ritual, remember the shadow, that person, the 10-foot tall man?
Yes.
Because he's talking about the ecosystem, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell the story about, because you just watched the footage, I didn't. So what happened? You were talking about the trees, or what was the situation with that?
So we did a ritual in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee, in the mountains. And as we were setting up the ritual, we kind of made like a little altar and started out by thanking the land and acknowledging the land, laid some tobacco, and the land responded. Like, it was happy that we were there. I started crying when we started doing this because I felt it so profoundly that it felt so lonely and alone, and we were there acknowledging the land. And as we did this, I had this inspiration to hug the trees, essentially. So one of our other friends that was there, she was closer. I said, you need to touch the tree. So I ended up going over there too. But while we were doing this and honoring the tree and honoring the land, there was this large black 10-foot being that showed up. Heather is the one that saw it. But our other friend that was with us, that was her family's land, she's like, oh yeah, I know who that is. That is, he's my friend. He's part of the land. This is his land. He rules it. And, in the ritual, we didn't think anything more of that because we had our mission that we were working on. But now looking back on it, it's like, okay, why didn't we stop and talk about this more? That we're talking about this land and this being that is there to acknowledge us for acknowledging it. And after he showed up, we were talking more, and apparently there had been some woodsmen, I guess, for lack of a better word, that had come, and they wanted to clear some of the timber from the land. And they did, but then they never paid for compensation for taking the logs out. And so it was like that wasn't repaid, and there was this debt that had been there and had not been acknowledged and just kind of been ignored, and life went on. And so I guess in a way what we were doing is we were helping to repay that and to mend what had been damaged. Even though our motives for doing the ritual and being there was completely different than that.
Accidental land healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And activation.
And activation. And you picked that spot. You said it was in the middle of nowhere.
It was at the back of our friend's house, like her family house. And we had gone there because of goblins.
Of course.
The tricks got us there.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, why did you, maybe it wasn't a, you know, when we look at free will, like you chose to go there of your own free accord, but was there other things going on that allowed for that alignment of that time and like, you know, in a quantum sense, like could other things be moved around to get you there to do that thing at that time?
Yes.
And then that sort, yeah.
But it reminds me when you talk about the ants, like, is the land sentient enough to like move things around? And you're talking about that right now. Yes, it is. Like, we didn't know we were going to be there, but it's funny because as we were driving in, I was like, why are the Native Americans around here standing up? Because I literally felt the energy move, and I was like, I asked, are there like a lot of like Native American sites here or something? Because they're all just kind of standing up. And our friend was like, yeah, this is Native American land. I'm like, that's interesting that as soon as we drive up, like we're being greeted, like, oh, we brought you here. But I'm wondering if the same thing happened with the Stone Light Inn, because I did say something about that in Sean's room when it was Camille was asleep. It was me, John, and Sean, and we were all talking. And I remember saying, we are all here in this room in this moment for a reason, and this is going to change things. And we're all going to go down all the same paths. But the fact that we're here together means something. And I couldn't figure out, well, it was 3 a.m, but I couldn't figure out what it was. Like I was, it felt like I was supposed to be there. And it felt like I was supposed to be in the house. And it felt like I was supposed to be in the house with you too. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because we were like the most sensitive people there. Like John has abilities and so do you. So it could have been just the convergence of the psychic energy. Like we are the strongest beacons. But something else that I mentioned to Stephanie is that usually when I go into this kind of situations, I always have precog dreams about it, even with Fee House. I had precognitive dreams about it. There was death. It was dead. I didn't get anything about the Stone Light. I didn't get any kind of energy. I never have. When Stephanie and I went there to look at the ghosts through the windows while I was taking pictures for my book, but the book was like 3 years ago. I didn't feel anything. I saw a woman in the window with white hair, and she was sad, and she was looking out the window, and she was all in white. And then I remember saying somewhere in that weekend, did I see Rebecca? Like, was that like a future echo that I was just like tapping into? Like, because that's the only person I saw. That was the only ghost there. And when I saw the picture of her, I was like, woman that I saw in the window, that's kind of weird. But that was 3 years ago. There wasn't like any time now. So it's just I don't know. But yeah.
Well, you had a conversation about that, right? Because that your dad had confirmation of, I guess, paranormal being real because of that conversation he had with Rebecca.
Yeah. They had a little Scorpio conversation through John. which is why I wanted John to talk about it. But because it was his first time doing ST session, and he fucking nailed it. And I was like, bro, like, you don't think you realize how hard that is that you just did. And going through my dad, like my dad and John was communicating with Rebecca. We're having a full on conversation that had future echoes in it, because even you, Sean, the next day said something. I forgot what it was and I can't remember, but we were at lunch the next day before you were leaving. You said something that John said to my dad that didn't make sense. And it only made sense in the moment when you said it. And I was like, we have another future echo. This is weird. Like, every part of that conversation had a point and a purpose. And that,
Cool. So was that the restaurant down in Oklahoma City?
yeah, Cattleman's.
Yeah. Which I'd never been to.
Cattleman's.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So my first time to Cattleman's, famous Cattleman's in Oklahoma City. And of course, they put us all the way in the back corner, sitting directly underneath a picture of George Bush. And there's a big, it's not a painting, but it's like a
Big mirror thing.
No, it's the mirror. It's the 33 with the giant key.
Oh,
I didn't
So I
see
was like,
that. Oh my goodness.
33 with a key. And then like, it was just George Bush and then 33 and a key. And I was like, some more like little trickster artifacts
That's
woven in there at the very end of the trip.
It's like, don't forget about me.
Right. Can't
Well,
forget about you.
We only have a few minutes left, but I do want to talk about Joan. Like, why do you think Joan came through? The little girl. Because that was random. That was so random and weird. And you were the one that found the doors.
The doors in the basement?
Yeah,
The shutter doors.
the shutter
Well,
doors.
Yeah, well, she's talking about a monster, if you remember. And it was you asked if we were talking to Joan because she had been taken in a monster tornado. What I thought we deduced, but that wasn't in Guthrie. That was the strange thing
Right.
about
That's
Joan.
why I'm wondering, why did she come through? Because she's the only energy that came through so strong. And for those who don't know, Joan Gay Hart is her name. Joan Gay Croft. Who's Hart? Joan Gay Croft was a little girl who got abducted in a basement at the hospital. We're in a basement after her mother got killed in a tornado.
monster tornado. It was a huge tornado,
Yeah.
supposedly. Yeah.
yeah. It destroyed half of the town.
In Woodward, right? Where you're from.
In Woodward, which is your
Yeah,
last name.
it's like the deadliest tornado in Oklahoma.
Yeah, which is my last name.
Which is your last name. And then Joan her birthday is October 28th.
Which is your
My
birthday.
birthday,
Right.
which is also today, just for fun. See,
Right.
that's when we can be tricksters too,
Right.
But I think my thought was because I'm not doubting the validity that was Joan, but you were the one that made that assertion. And so with you being in that battery or in that space, if this is a portal and this is a house that has these capabilities, then like we have no idea what the energy superhighway looks like. And so like she could have just been like, oh, this is my chance, like, but the other thought was, we don't know where Joan was taken after she was abducted. So then there is a percentage of a chance that she was taken to Guthrie, to the center of masonry in Oklahoma, right? It is the headquarters. So that's sort of another one of those, I'm not going to make any accusations because that's not fair but there's like, well, who steals 5-year-old girls and why would they steal a 5-year-old girl? And there's lots of knee-jerk reactions, but then there's some darker ones as well.
Yeah, Woodward's what, 2 hours away?
About 2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was interesting. That was the only child energy that came through. And it wasn't, well, that's the other thing. Rebecca said monster too. She said monster a couple times upstairs. And
The
that
house
was-
is a monster.
The house is a monster, yes. But it was interesting because she was the only child that came through, and that's why we ended up in the basement. I'm going to talk to Afina about that, so we don't have to go through that. But I just wonder, like, again, we're getting very specific energies, and we have a little girl, which is what we're talking about children this whole time in the school next door, and the child that we get is someone who forces us in the basement, who literally says, "Go to the basement." It literally said that, right? Yeah.
So why do we keep picking up on kids that make us go to the basement?
I don't know.
Well, Uncle Doug, who's not here today, but just he calls it the torture room, right? And like, I don't know what happened to him when he was a kid in the basement, but when we moved into my house in Portland, like there were some weird things in the basement, and he could pick up on them. And Uncle Doug has some super sensible capabilities that he doesn't really know he has. And like when we were pulling apart the house, like we would find drywall with our names on it, like, but it was like 1950s wallpaper, and it said Sean and Doug, and like just weird shit like that, right? Like, so he was, oh, this is the torture room. And so I've always looked at basements as like, that's where you would lock people up, you know, like that's where you would put bad kids, because then they couldn't make noise as easily. You couldn't see them through the windows. And so I always feel that the basement is instinctively where it's a restraint, right? And so that's where you restrain things, stash things, you put things down there. It's always dark and cold, musty. So I feel like the basement is where our secrets are, or our, you know, the things we hide. Up in the stone line, that's where they put all their tax records, you know, and like various other paperwork that was not hidden at all. So it's a little contradiction there, but so I feel like the basement is going to be where the bad things happened. Like you might have some stuff upstairs, but if there was any bad things, I mean, it's a 100-year-old, 120-year-old home. So there's going to be some, what we might call like normal abuse, not necessarily the ritualized abuse that could have happened to kids. And that would be in a place out of sight. But that's all hypothetically speaking.
Do you remember, I don't know why this is coming up so strong. Well, a lot of houses that we go, they tell us to go to the basement. The kids do. Go to the basement. Do you remember when I was doing the Kanzari cards? Kanzari cards are like oracle cards, but they're for speaking with the dead. It kept saying, the man keeps telling me to go in the basement, and we were in this place, and like, there's no base. It was the fee house, I think, but there's no basement in this house. You keep telling me to go to the basement. There's no basement. And then in the Crescent, we were told to go to the basement. But that's where Norman Baker had his funeral. What was it? His morgue.
His morgue. But that's where the jars were too.
That's where the jars were too. Which we connected to a little girl through that. But in this house, there was a basement, and he told us to go into the basement. And then there's a little girl, another little girl, who's like the monsters. But then again, Rebecca said the monsters too. So there's something about the monsters in the basement. And we go down there, and all the chairs are set up so they could sit around it. Like it's already sitting there. So I just wonder what that phenomena is and why we keep experiencing it. Like you said, it's the secrets, right? Are we supposed to pick out the secrets? Is that what we're supposed to be doing? That we're supposed to be healing the secrets? Is it like some kind of like balance energy?
Like when we started out this talk, it's like the demons that we all kind of hide in, the common archetypal demons. But like humans have a long history, especially like men abusing children. And, you know, like, I feel like that's part of it intuitively was what was coming through to me when we were talking to Joan, is that there's always ritualized abuse in small towns, in, you know, in big cities too, but concentrated when it's when it's a small town, it's everybody keeps their mouth shut, and that makes it even more of a problem because then it becomes epigenetic. Like nothing gets healed. Everybody keeps going along like there's nothing there. So that's sort of what I feel may have been happening with, like, clairvoyant, empath. What can we do? They're open to trying to heal this. Let us go. So if we're like when we go out and look for spirits or we're going to haunted areas, it could just be picking up that, like these negative, bad things have happened and we're like tuning into something that real happened in the history. Or like we started out the talk, our own lives have showed us that sort of abuse does happen. And so that's like the natural storyline that we want to jump into, is that Mason's bad, Mason's, and so like, it's like, did I manifest that storyline out of my own stereotypes that, because this is the city of Masons, therefore X and Y may have happened.
Right. And that's why I don't want to pull cards on it.
Right.
I've grown up learning about Joan Gaycroft and the tornado. I mean, since I was little, I would go into the museum in Woodward and see the tornado pictures. They have them, like half the museum is the tornado destruction. I mean, that's what it is. And, my elementary school was by the old hospital. I went by there all the time. So for me to try to pull cards on the situation and what she wanted, like there's too many stories that I could put into that interpretation that I don't want to touch it.
I totally respect that.
That makes sense. And it makes sense why it's just weird that she showed up in that
Right.
in the
It is
basement. I'm
weird.
like, that is a little bit creepy and weird. I'm not gonna lie. And I guess we have like 4 minutes left, so let's wrap up. But like, why can't we just have normal investigation? Like, why couldn't we just play with the kid with the ball? No, we have to go deep dive into these freaking.
Well, it's the birthday buddies, right?
Yeah,
That's the time and space thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
like we've got Sean here. He was born on the 28th, so let's tap into his birthday buddy presupposition thing, And then Joan has the 31st, which is my daughter's birthday, which is a few days from now.
that's
So
Rebecca.
I like,
Rebecca has 31st.
I'm sorry, yeah, Rebecca. Joan has the 28th, Rebecca's the 31st.
That's your daughter.
It's my daughter. Yeah, my daughter Hannah is 31st. So,
It's
and I
like
think there's like birthdays are sort of like portals into a different time and space and connecting with other energies of people who are alive or who once lived. So I think that, that's part of why I liked it. That's my story that I'm telling myself anyway. I don't think it's fair to pull cards on why or who that chose to appear. But the messages were pretty genuine and definitely opened up for me a bunch of cans of worms, looking at more than just the stone line, but now looking at Oklahoma and the water and radiation and, what we thought we knew about the Oklahoma territory and what we still have yet to discover.
What about you, Steph? Any ending thoughts?
No, I agree with you. There is a lot to Oklahoma that still needs to be discovered. I talk about that all the time, of the weird connections and coincidences that happen. And there's something that doesn't make sense. And I don't know what it is. But I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of it, maybe.
In the next lifetime.
The next time around. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all in spirit gonna go to this stone lane and be like, oh, we got to get to the other side of this now. Okay, this makes sense. Yeah. Because there is the one thing that we didn't talk about, but I wanted to say real quick is there is time dilation in these haunted places where past, present, and future are definitely converging. And there's no distinction with the actual entities or thought forms or whatever you're talking to. There is no distinction with time. It's And my dad was talking about time dilation. And Rebecca said, maybe. And then proceeded to show us future echoes. And I was like, yeah, she's messing with us. She's messing with us because she knows that it's time dilation and it doesn't matter. Past, present, future all happen at the same time in those kind of places. So I thought that was very interesting. Yeah. So we could talk about this for like hours, but it's 2 hours now. So any final last words?
Great to meet you, Stephanie. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of this, and keep me posted.
Okay. What about you, Steph?
I got nothing. Nothing. Nice to meet you, Sean.
This was a great conversation. We definitely, in the future, we need to meet somewhere, like have an investigation together or something, or like do something. I think it'll be kind of interesting to see how the energy moves now that we know all this stuff. So, so happy birthday, Sean, again.
Thank you.
And have a good night.
It's gonna be good. And have a great weekend. It's Halloween, so
Oh, yeah. Well,
most magical time of year around here anyway.
you're
Scorpio
out.
season. Yeah, oh yeah. It's a season. Yeah. Autumn, Scorpio, fall, winter.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. With that, thank you so much.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.